Hello everyone, it's Jeremytroid. EA's press conference has just wrapped up and the new Mirror's Edge trailer has been released. It's been a little while since I've made a new Mirror's Edge video. 5 years according to YouTube, but if you are friends with me on Steam, then you know that I have not abandoned the game, not at all. By my estimation, I've probably played 2,000 hours of the original, so I obviously have a problem, but I'm going to try and use that for the betterment of everybody and do an analysis on this new trailer to see what is new, what is different, perhaps what's carried over. So let's get into it. Okay, so at the beginning of the trailer, we see Faith asleep, and she has this dream about her sister. I'm assuming it's Kate, but things could have changed by now. She has another vision where she sees a runner, but Faith is wearing this orange jumpsuit, which is very prison-like, and we see this drone. The government is much more blatantly oppressive in this game than the original, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But what I've been saying is that the old game felt more like North Korea, and this one feels more like Blade Runner, and I don't think this trailer really changed that. It's not bad necessarily. I think they can do interesting things with it, but it's definitely a change and departure from the original's feeling. Faith is running from some Kruger guys here, and we get to see some combat. She kicks a guy through a window, gets the hand-to-hand here, and then she does a wall climb turn and then kicks his legs out from under him, which is a new move. Faith does a little wall climb up here in the cinematic, and we get to see this big city vista. And then the runners have upgraded from their old AC unit. I mean, I know it's a reboot, but it is not the AC unit they used to have. They have a proper, like, apartment now, which is good. And now we see Kruger, and we saw him a little bit before, but he's interesting, I think, and we'll talk about him later. And this guy is one of the more... I don't know what to think. It's very interesting. There was no hint. There was nothing about him before. He was completely new, so it will be interesting to see what they do with him. Alright, and so now it's time for us to break down the trailer and really get into what we saw. The trailer was only 2 minutes and a second, I think, 2 minutes and 5 seconds maybe, so there was not, it was not as long as some of the previous trailers, but I think it had the most new information and was one of the most interesting ones that they released so far. So early on, we see Faith getting patted down, and she has this orange jumpsuit on, and it seems to imply that she's been imprisoned and then is being released at the beginning of the game, maybe because for the rest of the trailer we never see this jumpsuit again, and she gets escorted out of some structure or building with a Kruger security personnel, and she has some civilian-like clothes back on. So it will be interesting to see how that came about, why it happened, when it happens. It might not be at the beginning of the game. Obviously this is a trailer, so things are mixed up. Next, it cuts this flashing of ads, and we get to see a bunch of different ones. And this is one of the fundamental differences, I think, between this new game and the previous game, in that the type of oppression has changed now from the older game. The older game had more of a governmental oppression vibe, but now I think it's changed to something that is more of a corporate oppression, because we see many more ads in the world. But in the old game they did have these ads, but they were not they were not advertising a product necessarily. They were they were very clearly propaganda for the government. But these new ads seem to be advertising an actual product and an actual thing, and it's significantly different from the feel of the old game. Next, we see Faith. We get a close-up of her face, and I think that her design has not changed very much, but it's been updated a little bit, and there's not much to say here. I like it. It's been good. It's what we've been seeing for the past 2 years. And then we get this big, big open shot of the city. It's called the City of Glass now. It has more of a name. Still not very clear, but it's something. And once again, this gets the more Blade Runner feel than the old game, and we see a lot of people, a lot of cars, a lot of helicopters. There's more activity from people who are not runners than the older game. So it will be interesting to see how you as a player end up interacting with the people of the city, if there's any interaction at all. So I think it'll be very cool to see that come about. We get to see Faith do some combat, and in this sequence she's running through a hallway, and there is this Callahan construction symbol. So it's good to see that they have not completely abandoned Callahan as a character, and she's still the mayor. Mayor Callahan is still the mayor of the city, I'm assuming, but she does not seem to be as big of a player this time, at least from what we know, because they showed this clip of Kruger, and he does seem to be the main antagonist this time. He's pretty evil looking. He's got a black suit, and he's got dudes with guns around him, so obviously not a nice guy. I think he might be a little bit better of a target than Callahan was in the original game. It was kind of, I loved it, as we all did, but the original game was not the most focused. Some of the motivations were unclear. So hopefully he's interesting. I don't want him to be one-dimensional, If he's just evil to be evil, then that's kind of lame. But we'll see how it goes. There's not much to him right now. So then we get this shot of Faith running down the zip line, which is interesting for a couple of reasons. It gives us a nice shot of the city, which is big, which is good because it's going to be open world. We get to see Faith's shoes, which are no longer have the separation of the big toe from the rest of her feet. But that's a small detail. It's whatever. They're Faith shoes. It'll be fine. They look all right. They have a brand on them, but I can't read it because the version of the trailer I have is 720p, and I can't make out what brand her shoes are. Small detail, but it's subtle, but one of the bigger things I noticed is that it looks like runner vision might not be here in the form that we know it, at least. In some of the gameplay they showed during E3, there were these yellow orbs that Faith grabbed, and so they seem to be some form of guide through the city. But in the shot that I'm talking about now, she's running down the zip line that is not highlighted as it would normally be in the original game. So that was an interesting detail that we should notice, because I did really like runner vision because it added to the aesthetic a lot, but the aesthetic of the newer game is also busier, so I don't know if it's necessarily, from an aesthetic standpoint at least, I don't know if it's necessarily that tragic of a loss. We also get to see the new runner's hideout, which I mentioned while we were doing the run through. It's upgraded. So it's not an AC. It's not a gutted AC anymore. And it was kind of cool in the original that that their hideout was kind of improvised. It added to the character of the runners as a whole and who they were, that they would use this AC unit as a place to stay, because it was very survivalist, right? So the government was hunting them. They had no options. They had to stay in this AC unit. But they've got an apartment now in this game, and it's a reboot, so we'll see. We see a bunch of runners here, none of whom are really familiar to me. They're kind of just generic dudes in black and red, with pants and shoes, like the rest of the runners. So hopefully we will see more runners. We just got Krieg, a little bit of Drake, Celeste, Merc, obviously, Leaf in the comics. So hopefully there will be more runner interaction, and we'll be able to get them fleshed out and everything like that. As I said, I don't recognize any of them, so it's possible that no one will return from the original, but we will see. Obviously, I mean, I've been saying we will see a lot, and that's because there's just not that much that's known right now. Going back to the environment for just a little bit, there was a shot of this construction site, and it looked very much like the atrium from the original, and that's what it reminded me of. And so I'm pretty excited. The atrium was a really nice level. It was puzzly, had good music, so there's that. Hopefully that puzzle platforming kind of comes back a little bit, because it was very cool to do it the first time and kind of stumble through it, but then when you've been playing it for so long, you get really good at it, and then you can just sail through it, and every time you remember the first time that you basically walked through that section and you died 3 times, but then you can do it now. You can do it now in 45 seconds without dying. And so hopefully they'll have areas like that come back and that you can master. And now we get to one of the most interesting people in the trailer, I think, besides Faith, is this guy with the pigeons. There had been nothing. I had no idea he was coming. Obviously, no one did, I think, except for the people at DICE. People have been saying Morgan Freeman a lot. I can see the resemblance. I'm not familiar enough. I don't watch many movies, so I don't know if it is or not. But my first impression was, is this the new janitor? Is this the janitor, or is this the reinterpretation of the janitor from the original game? Because in the original, he would leave these cryptic notes, and he obviously had a deep knowledge of the city, and was able to get into Parandelo Kruger, was able to get into the Shard before Faith, and he helped set up a lot of things, I think, and helped guide Faith throughout the game. He was shown to not be very intelligent, like there were a lot of misspellings, and this new character is much more well-spoken than the old janitor, so it's definitely a reinterpretation if it is, but I'm very interested to see who he turns out to be, and what his sort of role is. But he does, from what was seen, he does seem to inspire Faith to be the change in the city. And then right after that scene, Faith turns around to a whole group of enemies, and we see the standard dudes with submachine guns, and then we also saw a lighter guy. By lighter, I mean more like the pursuit cops from the original. He jumps down from the little terrace, and so there are clearly people who will be able to follow you. They will not be the, basically mounted guns that most of the guys in the original game were. They will be able to follow you, and so running seems to be more of a challenge this time, which is good. Because in the old game, once you got out of the specified arena pretty much, you were good. And even the pursuit cops had limits. But I think this time the opposition will be a little more formidable, and something to actually, challenge the player. And so now, right before the trailer ends, sadly, we get a little shot of Faith. She makes a fist, and we get a little shot of her pants and the texture of the glove, and that's that. It was a good trailer. I liked it. I thought that it shows a lot of promise, and I'm very excited to see where they go with this game. Okay, everybody, I know it was long, I know it was a lot, but thank you for sticking through it. Thank you for sticking with me through the video. I'm very excited. It's more Mirror's Edge after 7 years, and it's about time, basically. It's about time that we got more Faith, and I think this is another game that I could easily spend 2,000, if not 4,000 hours in, unless I get a life between now and when the game comes out, which is possible but unlikely. So yeah, I will see you guys in the future. Thanks.